everyone, and welcome to the American Scouser podcast. Another Monday night, right on time, 7 o'clock Central, 8 o'clock Eastern. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, all over the place, even Twitter tonight, actually. But I'm your host, as always, Timucin here. No Galley. I don't even know where he's at. He probably did tell us, but maybe we weren't listening. Do you know where Galley's at?
He says a lot of words. I think we missed it.
It's like, where is Waldo? Yes, we have no idea where he's at, but he's safe somewhere.
Probably some work function, sipping on a Miller Lite and chatting up somebody. Would be my guess.
Making life miserable for someone telling his sales stories over there is probably what I'm guessing too. But Bickler is here. How is it going over there?
It's good, man. Our company my department has like an on-site this week. So like everybody from the team has flown in from all parts of the country to like sit in the office all day. So I was meant to sit in the office all day. And we had a lot more FaceTime with people at work than I wanted. So here I am.
Yeah, that's like weird, right? Like having worked like retail and stuff in the past, I kind of like, speaking of retail, it's like a safe word. Brian Shelton shows up in the
Hey guys.
Someone say retail. But like I initially semi-missed that. The human contact that you have all the time, whereas it's totally different, working through email and stuff like that, day-to-day managing of people and stuff. But then where was it? I can't remember where we went with Angie, but I was like, yeah, I think I'm good without seeing another human for like 5 days. I can't remember. I don't know, maybe when we came back from New York. I can't remember when it was, but I was like, I think I'm good for like a week or so. We should not see other humans, kind of a deal.
Yeah, you forget about all those stereotypes that you really hate. Like there's the one guy that always asks the questions, like when we had all these guest speakers that come in and talk to us, and it's like every time that's supposed to stop and the next one's supposed to come in, there's a guy that asks like 2 or 3 questions that you're like, dude, shut up. Like
teacher's
dude. Like, yeah.
Those are the same guys when you were in school. The class was about to be dismissed, and he would ask you, dude, shut up. We're about to get out of here.
Yes. 100%.
This is what they grow up to be. They're making now meetings miserable for people. But yeah, I mean, honestly, like with this whole refereeing and stuff like that, I'll tell you what, these bone spurs are a killer. First of all, my heel is saying you're way too fat to haul you around this many minutes on a week. But yeah, I was hoping it would slowly get better. It gets really bad when I play, because I was like, oh, I'm not playing though, I'm just running. So I'm not like using it as a plant foot, because it's always like the left foot. But yes, it's been rough, and it has not been coming back. Brian, Alan, Hassan in the chats, welcome aboard. Brian says, I just stay home and walk through my woods. No humans. I don't know if you saw the pictures, and if you guys are not on the Discord channel, you should join. But for those,
Brian's essentially the only one that can walk through those woods.
That's like Brian is decorating the woods for like Halloween, which are scary by itself. I mean, if those of you who don't know, like he has the land where Unabomber used to live right next to it. This is what it looks like. So, I was like, I don't know who is going there to trick or treats. I mean, he better be giving away like cases of chocolate or something like that for kids who kind of like struggle through that maze that he creates. He says, come by. Hell no, there's not enough candy in the world for me to get in over there. But a lot to talk about. Obviously, big game over the weekend. Another big 3 points. So, Bickler, I need you over here. I talked about it this morning a little bit as well. I am not understanding. I don't know where you are on this in terms of like the worry level. I am the worrier, right? I should be really worried right now, saying we're winning, but we're not, doing this, we're not doing that and stuff like that. I'm not worried. Like, I don't understand the over the top panic. Is it because people thought we signed all these guys? It's going to be like Harlem Globetrotters, like one guy whistling, Wirtz running around them, the other one scoring and stuff. Was it the expectation way too high? 4 games, 12 points. Nobody else has done it. I know it's ugly. Sometimes, I mean, not sometimes, most of the times it's in the last minute or whatever. But these were supposed to be the growing pains. And if you're getting 3 points through growing pains, why the panic? Or are you panicking as well and not going to help me out tonight?
No, I mean, listen, I think as a supporter fan base in general, we've been pretty spoiled over the last decade, right? So I think you came from a Jurgen Klopp team that could basically put the pedal to the floor and blow the doors off teams with goals, to an Orange Slot team who rolled for the first like seemingly month and a half into his debut campaign with 2-0 victories that felt very, very professional, right? And so I think we don't have either of those. We don't have a ton of goals, and none of these have been really buttoned up performances. I think if you wanted to make an argument of things to be concerned about, not to put you back on your meds, but essentially like you got to worry about a side who puts that much possession into a game and gets that many chances, but puts that few on frame, right? Like that is definitely something you could talk about. I think that was corrected in the last 20 minutes of that game, and that's ultimately why we won. The other thing is you got to talk about is like, can this team in this iteration win a title not playing through Mo Salah? Because that's what's happening right now. So we'll see what happens here. I am not concerned about it. I think this team will figure it out. I think the things that I liked about this side is that they seemed fairly composed throughout. And I think they just put a tight squeeze, almost like a boa constrictor on this side. And I think, eventually that won out.
Look, I mean, here's the thing. I think this is like the only part that I did not get and was kind of worried about moving towards the future is I don't think anybody is going to play as defensively as freaking Burnley did. That's ridiculous. I was just literally watching something. They completed 81 passes the entire game. I don't think I've ever seen that low. 81 passes the entire game.
I think I saw the stat that Rio came in like 8 minutes, had 3 passes inside the opposition's box, which is as many as Burnley had in 90, which is wild, right? I mean,
that's crazy. I mean, that's not even a pass a minute because they didn't even get the garbage center back to center back passes because they were too afraid to build anything. They kept like booting it. So they don't play anything at all. They keep giving the ball. I guess what I didn't understand is, especially like the first half and probably like the beginning of the second half, really until like the last 10, 15 minutes when you introduce Rio and Frimpong, some speed on the wings and stuff. One, why were we playing so freaking slow? That's the first part. Like, the key to opening a defense like this is to shift them around. The only way the ball is going to shift around is at the most pass. People always used to say, oh, he only passes it sideways and stuff. But that was one thing when we had Hendo, for example. He would switch wings, move the ball around, move fast with it, and that's the key. It took forever for us to just look up, pass to the guy next to it, look up, pass to the guy next to it. So it's very easy to defend. And we never got wide. We keep trying to. I realize we signed Wirtz, and he's in the middle. But it just kept like we started trying to shove it down the middle where there's like 30 people, it feels like.
Yeah, we didn't. I mean, we made it real easy for Burnley. Let's be honest. For like the first 70 minutes of that match, we made it very easy. Not a lot of I think the thing that we're missing, and to your point about moving it faster, is like we didn't see a lot of the big switch, right? And part of that is because Burnley just didn't come into our third very often, right? So there's no room to really switch it. So you're just cycling possession in top of a loaded box in front of 2 banks of 4, right? I think when that happens, when you have a team that sits back that deep, you need to get the ball wide, and then you need somebody from your wide position to start taking somebody on 1v1. Yeah. So that it forces somebody to come out of that bank of 4 and creates room for people to run into, right? And I don't think we saw that until we kind of made the fullback switch and you had Frimpong starting to do more of that. And that really started to unlock a lot of that stuff. I'll also say, man, I know I'm the big advocate of pumping the brakes on Rio, but Rio unlocked a lot of that too. He started directly taking players on 1v1. And when the guy that really unlock that is like your guy coming off of injury and another guy that's 17, you probably need to look at that and have a conversation around it. But hey, it happened and it worked out.
That's the thing. It felt like, so when this happens, and they were just, I don't understand the over the top criticism of Mo, because I think if you're playing against Liverpool, I mean, obviously they're already sitting back, but if you're kind of doubling anybody and you don't want him to lift his head up, Mo is probably more that guy right now. Like, we probably want Wirtz to be that guy, but it feels like it's Mo, because like you said, everything goes through Mo. So you don't even want him to look up to hit Gakpo in the back post or Ekitike in the front post or whatever it might be. So that side is already covered. It feels like when we have games like this, we are relying on Gakpo. And I think we got more in terms of aggressiveness from when Diaz was there. I know this is going into like a bad territory in that sense,
Yeah,
but are we putting all our eggs on Gakpo's basket when we do this? Because we're not getting any width. Kirkus is not doing as many overlaps. He's just like flopping in the box instead and all that. We just did not get any width, and it feels like everything is on Gakpo to do something.
Maybe. I think there's a very small percentage of matches where like the Gakpo and the way that he plays is going to be problematic. And I think this is one of them. I think when you have a side that sits back like this, I think there's a reason why like it looked so much better with Rio over there, because he started just taking players on direct. He is a player that likes to play facing goal, where I think Gakpo can do that stuff, and he likes to come in and shoot on his right. But I think Gakpo is much more comfortable with his back to goal and facilitating the overlap or the underlap on the inside, right? And that's what makes him great, especially with a player like Wirtz. I mean, that like Gakpo is the guy that if you told Wirtz he wanted to play with, would probably pick. But I think it just so happened in this match, you need a Rio. You need somebody who is going to terrify that outside defender just with their sheer pace, right?
And that's the thing. I think that's what we lacked. And you could kind of tell. And I realized they were down to 10 men. They're really, I mean, they were already all in the box, but they're even back further now because they know there's like 5 minutes left, 10 minutes left or whatever. So it does make it a little bit easier, but still, it felt like when we had that speed outside, like you're saying, it kind of like put a bit more of a scare into him. And then you were able to get some crosses and stuff like that. And I just felt like we did not challenge the box. And I'm not talking about just sending like senseless crosses in there, but in this day and age, and that's how the penalty came about, like things can happen inside that box if you get the ball in there instead of like dancing too much in front of it. And Dara says, and I do agree with this, like I think it's like for most of like the newcomers, there's like maybe not Ekitike because he hit the ground running and he already had the goals and stuff like that. But I think it's too early for any of these guys to be overexcited or underexcited. But I mean, the Kirkes thing, it was nice to see Robertson come in and do well, actually, because it will push him a little bit. It just feels like Kirkes needs a little bit more of that. This game is yours. This game is not kind of a deal, because like that dive and stuff, I just feel like I was talking about it this morning. He's trying to get his moments. Like he's trying to make that game his, and it's affecting his game negatively.
Yeah, I can see that. I think he's coming from. I just think that Kirkes is going to have to reframe this a little bit. He's super young, and I think he's coming from a side where he's used to being like, if not the guy, one of the guys with Semenyo, right? In that side. Yeah. That really was one of their primary attacking assets. And I think he, in some ways, is maybe trying a little bit too hard to continue that here, and not just understanding we just need a solid fullback on that side, right? And like some of those things are going to come, and he's going to have his moments. I just think he's just trying a little bit too hard, and I think he's a little bit inside of his own head. And I think that that's probably very, very normal for a young player that's coming off making Team of the Year, right, in the EPL. And I think a lot of people are forgetting that this is a player that he's not a one-year wonder. He's extremely young. He's going to be fine. He's going to get his moment. I just think he's had a couple of bad ones here, but like he's also had a couple of really great matches here too.
Yeah, there's a lot of like, we were talking about in the morning show, like Alberto Moreno, like references and stuff like that. And it's just like way too freaking early for that. And not to mention, this is not a guy we brought over from like Netherlands or Portugal or something. And we're like, oh, he got found out in the Premier League. He's done this in the Premier League. The potential is there. What do you think of this? Because I did not think about this until today, for example. But as much as I rooted more for Robertson to stay, obviously, over Costas and stuff, do you think part of the problem is, if it was Costas behind him, there's a lot less of looking over your shoulder as opposed to Robertson? Or is it just a matter of him going up to the big leagues and being a Liverpool player and just the pressure of that alone?
I don't think it has anything to do with Robbo. In fact, if anything, I think that should make him feel better because he doesn't have a younger player pushing him for minutes behind him. I think he understands that Robbo is, designed to come in and be the sort of senior mentor in this position. I think it's the best thing that could possibly happen for the club to have Robbo back behind him, not just from a playing time standpoint, because it gives this club the ability for him to sort of shape and help shape Kirkes into the fullback they need him to be. very much in the way that like I think most of us really wanted Henderson to do, right? For the incoming midfielders the following year, before he kind of took off. I mean, that's what we wanted Hendo to do with Soboslai, really. So I'm all for it. I don't think it factors that much in because I think I would feel differently if it was another young back behind him.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of
all
like,
extensive purposes. You should have Frimpong feeling that way about Bradley,
right?
Yep.
Because I think the Frimpong thing is a bit different in terms of like it feels like he can play different positions, but when you look at Kirkes and Robertson, it's left back or death, kind of an ordeal.
Yeah.
So whereas you know, I mean, like you can use him on the wing and do different things with like Frimpong that you can't do with Kirkes. I'm not even with Dara, but here's the thing. I mean, I missed the second half, could not watch it live because I was doing the refereeing deal. And then you go back. It's funny when you look at the Discord chat. I just did not understand the over the top like negative review of the team, and there's always a scapegoat, like Bob says. It's Gomez, it's Lovren, it's like the default guy that's at fault, like anything defensive, kind of an ordeal. But aside from how we were going about attacking, did you think the performance was poor? Because I'm looking at an ineffective performance, perhaps, but I did not necessarily see like a poor performance in the game.
Listen, I know like we're going to talk about the fact that Burnley didn't really go out and try to win anything, but I actually thought that like Kanate and Verge were quietly really good because I thought like they dealt with a lot of long balls and sort of like basically neutralized whatever Burnley was trying to do over the top. And I thought they handled that really well. I thought there were good performances throughout that. I just think a lot of people aren't wired to see it unless they're seeing it on a box score, right? Or seeing a 4-3-0 win. Like I thought in a lot of ways it was a pretty professional win where like we didn't make any stupid mistakes. For the most part, we played it pretty smart. And like, we really just sort of tightened down the screws in the last 20 minutes. And like, I know people will say we're lucky. City has titles built off of these kind of wins because like the fact of the matter is if you have that much possession and you're in dangerous areas that many times, it's not luck when you win. You just you're like Burnley was playing with the percentages. It's like you can be the safest person in the world. If you go to the wrong side of town every single day, eventually you're going to become a statistic. Like, right? Like, I mean, I just think that's what it is.
Welcome, like someone from Detroit. Yes.
I just think that's from a footballing standpoint. Real easy for the white guy to say.
Dara, say mark your calendars. September 15th. We Dara and I agree on something. But yeah, I thought it was over the top. And yes, like Bob says, we don't always play well coming from these international breaks. They were like maybe like McAllister and stuff. You could see some tired legs. But I just felt like aside from how we attacked, it was not that poor. One thing, and this is the only worry I have, if there's a worry, is like maybe an area of improvement is I feel like this is where we need to be better at set pieces and off of these corners and stuff like that. Because I was talking about this morning a little bit as well, but like I feel like it affects how teams defend against you. Burnley was very comfortable kicking it out of bounds and here have another corner kind of thing. I don't think a lot of teams do that against Arsenal, for example, because they don't want those corners coming in. So do you think like Isak coming into the squad, probably like a month or so from now, based on what Slot is saying?
Yeah,
it sounds like it's changed compared to like yesterday, for example.
Yeah, it sounds like it's going to be a ways off. It's really interesting because I think the most dynamic you can get out of Liverpool is when you have Ekitike playing off of Isak like that and vice versa. I think that's when you're going to really start to see it. By the way, something that a lot of people didn't talk about yesterday or, in any sort of review of this match, Ekitike's off the ball work was insane. Like the amount of times that he came back and won the ball in midfield. We talk about how Burnley didn't really push the issue, but Ekitike was back in the mids winning balls like all day, which I mean, I just have a soft spot when I see my striker doing that. But I think he's going to be really, really great and continue to be great for us. I think there has to be, because of that dynamic, I feel like there's got to be some sort of a formation change. I don't see it being a static 3. I know Maka says we're thinking about it in positions, but I don't think that you can get away with not talking about it in positions, because eventually, if you're going to make those put all those pieces into the fray, I think it requires some sort of a positional change and sort of a formational like difference. I don't know if it's going to be essentially 2 up front. I don't, but that's what I imagine it's going to look like in some ways. And I expect we'll probably see a bit of a false 9 during January as well at some point.
I know when we talked about it before, we were almost like trying to, it felt like at the time we were trying to make it happen. Like, how can we get Ekitike and Isak there in the same time? But I have to say, a few times you saw him kind of like slide towards the left.
Yep.
And there's that one that he takes some like a player on and he almost like misses it, almost like goes horizontal. I was actually thinking when that happened, I was like, see, if you also have Isak, a striker who can smell a goal, they might be sliding into that thing in the back post over there. Nobody made that run towards like the back post, like for a cross or anything like that. But do you see a world where he is the guy on the left, but it goes against what we talked about, lacking the speed? That
Listen,
on a lot of speed.
I saw a world where it made sense that Darwin was there, and I still will stand by that. So I will say yes, right? I mean, and maybe that's the thing. Like maybe it's not Rio coming in a match where you need somebody to take somebody off the side, but it's you move Hugo to the left. I mean, that's certainly a possibility. I still see a world like, let's face it, I could see Mo off this team in a year. I know that's not a popular opinion, but I could see him move next summer, and then you've naturally got the ability to go to a 4-4-2 diamond mid. It's out there. We know the Dutch like to do it. It's not something Slot has typically done, right? But we know that the Dutch have long done that formation. I'm just saying that it makes sense given the pieces on this side right now.
Yeah, because the only person that you can't find the spot for that in the current system is probably Mo. But you have to have Mo.
Right.
Because, he is the one who's going to, I mean, they were talking about like on ESPN, like, his pool form and stuff like that. And I'm like, I just don't like, I find it hard to pinpoint, including the game yesterday. Like, oh, it's this guy that's out of form. It's almost like things are not clicking. Yeah. Everybody's doing their thing. It's just not working together right now.
Well, so much of what Mo does well is mitigated in a match like this. I mean, you're used to Mo running on the stuff over the top, right? Or beating people with pace and transition. And you don't get that stuff in this match unless you happen to get Burnley sucked in and you hit a diagonal over the top to Mo from left to right. Like then you got it, but you just don't see that in a match like this. I still think, man, like, back to the diamond mids, if you are a team that's predicated on moving the ball through the midfield and scoring through the middle, like it makes a lot of sense. I don't know. And this is one of those things, like this is a match where Slot is going to have to figure out how to adjust, because this is a match where you win from attacking in wide areas.
Yeah. And I think that's when, as much as I think Dara was saying in the comments, like I thought Szoboszlai had another great game. Like I had quietly another great game as a right back, then coming into midfield. Just the versatility alone is like a huge plus over there. But I think when you have him start as right back, and then Kirk is not being totally there yet, you are lacking those speeds on the wings, and it feels like those guys should be the ones more running the ones outside as opposed to the inside runs, like especially like if you had Frimpong over there and stuff. And I know the goal ultimately came from like the penalty where he kind of like comes up on in the beginning, but it is not luck when you have 81% possession, 27 shots. Yeah, I mean, look, the only credit I can give to Burnley is they freaking stuck to it. Like they never got hustled into, hey, maybe we can get something out of this game.
Yeah.
One, it goes back to what you're saying, I think, with like Konate and Van Dijk kind of shutting down anything. Like they did not even get, sometimes like Konate does. Like
you get that weird one
and stuff like that.
Yeah,
like
or you get that weird one when you kind of misjudge it and let it bounce. Like there's none of that. Like, and those are like, it feels like every time we have a game like this, one of those scares us, right? Like,
yeah, there is like that. I feel like, you do a couple of like silly fouls where you almost like overexert yourself, like jump over the guy and stuff. Now you're giving him a set piece in midfield. That's like another whole other minute for everybody to move and stuff. But they kind of stuck to their guns, and it's very anti-football, and it was it's really like really disgusting to watch. I mean, I don't think I would have watched that game if it was any other team, because it's like pretty much unwatchable. They're not doing anything. Like say 80 passes, that's pathetic. I mean, my point is, we could throw a team with the chat over there. Let's go all together, make up an 11. We could probably put together 80 passes, I would think, one way or the other, booting it to each other or whatever, toe poking it, whatever we do. But we would get 80 passes. For a Premier League team to play that's handicapped and like hands tied behind their back is just like freaking like ridiculous. And yeah, you do get lucky maybe in the sense that you get that penalty at the end, but you make your own luck. It goes to what you're saying. If they're gonna sit back, if anything, I felt like Brian, like Paul, we didn't take advantage of them sitting that far back deep, and puts more pressure inside the box.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's it, right? I think what I saw too much of is like it reminded me of like Wenger Arsenal, where they just try to overpass like through, like you know what I mean? Instead of like at that point, like. And this is what we did in the final 20. It was just get it on frame, or at least try to get it into the box, or take somebody on. It was one of those three. Either shoot it, cross it, take somebody on. And like, I think when you simplify that and you do that, you're going to create more problems. Because even if you don't get it in frame, maybe a defender turns his back and has an elbow out, right? Like, I mean, that's what happens. And that's not luck. That's just like creating opportunities through just sheer volume.
And I feel like, especially these days, and I don't know, this is just like an old guy yelling at clouds, but I feel like it's harder to defend in the box. You got to hide your arms, cut them off, and then you can't really touch anybody, because stuff that you maybe got away with in the past, even if it was a little nick, can now be watched at VAR and stuff like that. So I feel like, if somebody is in the box, I will be a lot more afraid, instead of you can dance around in front of the box all you want. You guys move the ball there and we'll watch you move the ball and we'll just sit back here. I felt like we did that a little bit too much. Dara has been hacked, is my theory on this, because he has agreed to a lot of things. So if
he hasn't one time told us that we're stupid. Where's
so
Gally?
Anybody knows Dara, get a hold of him.
Maybe it's because Gally's not. We could just blame it on Gally not being here.
You know what? That could be why.
That's what
he's not getting on Dara's nerve.
Me and you have it dialed in. It's a Gally issue, I think.
Bob says Atletico and Everton are going to be the same. See, I feel like, yes, they will look to defend first, but I cannot think of any other team that will be this freaking defensive. I really can't.
Yeah, I mean, I think both those sides are just physical sides, right? I think Atletico is still trying to get at you, right, up top, and I think Everton is much more open than they've been, in the last couple of seasons. Even with, the whole Dyche thing, like I still think they've got players that can get after you. I think Grealish has done some things for them offensively that they couldn't do before, prior to his arrival, and they're creating goals and opportunities. So. I do think that they will. I mean, there'll be instances where they want to hang back and stuff, but I don't see either one of those teams just stacking a low block with 2 blocks of 4 and just sitting there for 90.
Yeah, and like I say, I can see them thinking, okay, let's slow it down first. I watched, I think it was like last week's episode on Sky. Gary Neville was kind of talking about, playing at Anfield, and you got to get the crowds a little bit quiet and out of the game first. And the only way to do that is kind of like defend and like get it to a little lull of something. Because if it gets going, once it gets going, the momentum is going to kick in and you're going to lose that game, kind of a deal. And I can understand a team coming in and trying to take the edge off the game a little bit, control it a little bit, play it slow and play defensive and stuff. But I can't think of any other team that will play this. I mean, it was really pathetic, and it really still pisses me off every time I turn, like throughout the day, I was watching different stuff and people are like, oh, Burnley deserves something. You don't deserve shit if you're completing 81 passes in a game. I'm sorry. That's
100%.
That's not football. That is just not football. You don't deserve shit. Just because you defended for 95 minutes. Like I say, the only credit I can give is there is not one player over there who was like, fuck, this is boring. Like, we're just sitting back here, kind of a thing. I'm amazed, like, nobody kind of like, they kept that discipline. So that's credit to them. Mr. Batterer says, Sobo, I think, basically Bradley did not have the 90 minutes. I thought Slot's post-match press conference was very telling on like how they're planning to do the minutes in terms of like McAllister, in terms of like Isak and stuff like that. So based on that, it felt like we're gonna see Isak this Saturday for like 30 to 45 minutes, based on what he said in the press conference. But don't expect to see them in the Champions League. What do you expect to see in the Champions League? Do you want to see, or do you expect to see rotation? I know there's a lot of minute management going around, but
I think there's got to be some rotation, especially in the mids, which is like the one area where we don't seem to have it. So maybe I'm wrong, but I think that's where I want to see it. And I think, like the Isak thing is going to be a slow burn. Like basically, Slot told him he's in preseason right now, right? So, it looks.
I like what he said about, instead of they decided, basically, on like not quoting him, but pretty much he said, instead of doing like 5 minutes, then 15 minutes, then 20 minutes, they're just going to keep loading him up and then do like 45 here, load up all week again. Instead of playing him every 3 days for a little bit, they're going to kind of play him in like 45 here, 60 there. And it sounded like the first time would be this Saturday. But do you think like that determines anything else you do? The problem I see up top still is, if you're doing it in rotation, that means you're either like, you don't want to throw Rio or somebody like that against Atletico.
No, you don't. I would like to see Rio get more of a run and more rotation. I think if you're going to keep him with the first team, I want to see more 15 and 20s and less 5 and 10s with him. Like that's what I want to see. I do think that you're going to see some heavy involvement. The Jones thing is reportedly not serious. I think a good Curtis Jones run, you're going to see that. I think you'll see some heavy rotation and him feature quite a bit. I think the question is, how quickly can you get Bradley, and how quickly can you get from Prong like fit to 90? Because I think that makes a difference, because I think you need Soboslai in the mids for that rotation. I think we got fortunate, like the way the schedule lined up, where like Dom essentially was able to write himself into a right back situation. He might have pulled a Milner and almost became a default right back just by being too fucking good at it for his own good, right? But that's not where you're getting. I mean, it works, but that's not ideally where you want him.
And the same thing happened to Gomez for a while too. He was like, "Wait, what? Wait, I'm a center back. No, I'm a center back." But yeah, I honestly, like when the 11 came out, that was probably like the biggest shocker. I mean, automatically we knew Frimpong is coming back from the hamstring, so that's going to be limited. I was hoping Bradley, who played in international games, I'm assuming like he did a whole spiel on, 3 times a week, how many minutes, if you play 90 here, you can't play another 90 there, kind of a deal, which I totally understand. So it feels like the starting 11, though, is going to be like against Atletico Madrid, against like Everton for the next couple of weeks, is going to be more based on how many minutes does everybody have, and then try to form a puzzle from those pieces in the middle. But if I tell you, hey, I mean, aside from the obvious like Van Dijk and stuff like that, who do you definitely want going against Madrid? And more importantly, who do you want definitely going against Everton? Who are those guys? So you build the puzzle accordingly.
I mean, I don't think you really have a choice right now with your center back pairing. I think that's got to stay the same. Fullbacks, I actually would not mind seeing Robbo start versus Atletico. Like, I think to me that makes a lot of sense. In the mids, I would rather have McAllister in versus Atletico than I would Everton. I just think like stylistically and what he provides is like built to go up against one of those sides, where they're a little bit more compact in the middle. I think up top, I mean, I feel like it kind of writes itself. I don't know. Yeah, like I don't know if there's a whole.
We couldn't do much rotation now, though, could we?
No, your rotation is going to come with how your substitution patterns are up top. That's essentially it.
I mean, the biggest thing now is, I mean, that's what everybody's asking, like kind of like Dara is mentioning. I think there is some like over the top reactions. The Robertson thing is interesting, actually, because I don't know. Normally, I thought Robertson would be the one to start against Atletico, but now because of this minutes math, he was definitely not being expected to play like 60 minutes or whatever he ended up playing against Burnley. So I don't know if that automatically disqualifies him from the Madrid game and more preps him for against like Everton and stuff like that, because you end up using Kerkez only for 35 minutes at the end of the day.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I don't know that Robbo's going to give you I don't know that he's going to give you a full 90 either. You know what I mean? I don't know if you want that. So it's like one of those things. Maybe you flip them. Like maybe you give Robbo 60 and Kirk has 30, and then you give Kirk has 60 and Robbo 30 in the derby.
Yeah, that's the only problem. I think a lot of these are going to be, it's going to be almost impossible to second guess because it's going to be a lot of like minutes. But I do agree with Bob on this. Like, I really am not as, we talked about, like there will be a lot more rotation. And when you look at our Champions League schedule, I think it's a lot more heavier and more tricky in the beginning as opposed to the end. And if you can get away with, similar to how you got away with the first 4 weeks, getting some wins and 3 points while you're rotating and kind of like try to settle down, then, you can do even more rotation. Or if you need to get the 3 points, you can go full blown towards the end of the schedule where there's some like easier games. The biggest name probably, and I'm going to ask you this because it is kind of a lot of people fighting over it. It's a little bit over the top panic, but Wirtz. Is it just time? Is it just positioning?
I don't know about you guys, but I saw some incredible football from him. Like it's
especially. I thought so too.
Right. And it's just one of those things. Has he hit a banger yet? Has he threaded an incredible ball into somebody who scored yet? I mean, we haven't seen the spectacular, right? But I think if you watch him and you really look at what he's doing, I think it's incredible. I think he's a little bit of a unicorn in terms of like how he plays, like the balls that he chooses to play to players. Like, I think I used this before, but I think it reminds me a little bit of Thiago, where like players had to get used to like what he was seeing, because he sees things that a lot of people don't see. So they don't know to get into that space. Right. And I think you're going to start to see that. I see some really great combination play coming from, like, I think we expected, like, this is a player that Mo's going to love, but I've seen most of the sort of build up in interesting combination play happen with Gakpo in Ekitike. Like Gakpo, Ekitike, Wirtz has become this very, very cool triangle that you've seen. And oftentimes you would think that it would be triggered on the left from Gakpo, but it's actually Hugo who's dropping super deep and spinning this either inside or outside. And then from there, hitting the overlap on either side, which has been really cool to see. So there's some really unique and neat combinations happening right now that I think people are missing. I don't have any concerns. Like, I have 0 concerns about Wirtz. He'll be fine. But yeah, it's overreaction central.
It is a little overreaction central because you see those glimpses. And so, I mean, obviously, like the times he decides to, and you like Thiago analogy, I think is like a, like I think very dead on, because he would do those things where he would suddenly take off when you didn't expect it, and his acceleration is so fast, maybe because it is unexpected. I mean, the whole situation where he gets the second yellow into the red is basically that, him suddenly taking off with it, whereas normally we don't have those midfielders. They would just go back. I thought Gravenberch had like a really excellent game too, despite not having a lot of like space in the middle and stuff. Like I say, that's why, like you look at the players, I read the comments like during the game and after the game and stuff like that. I just feel like, it was just like over the top reactions in terms of like performance. One of those, like somebody was talking about, like Konate's, like the corner where he just mistimed the timing. All he had to do was like just bounce it off his head instead of actually head it. And that goes in, and that would have totally changed the game because you have Burnley coming out and stuff. So these next 2 games are going to be, I think, a lot more different. But here's a question for you, because as you were talking about Ekitike, I think we're both really like high on him. If you were, we talked about trying to make a system where, you have to have Mo out there. You have to find a spot for Mo. And it feels like probably you have to find a spot for Wirtz, right? You didn't sign him just not to find.
Yep.
So, and probably same for Isak. And I know we're talking like 2-3 weeks ahead of now. Do you try to find a spot for Gakpo, or do you try to work and find a spot for Ekitike? Which one do you prioritize? I know it's not it's kind of apples and oranges, but in terms of like trying to make it work, which one do you force feed?
This is tough. I'd probably force Gakpo in.
Okay.
I think And I'll tell you why, because I think you could be in a situation where your best 11 involves a situation where if you have Gakpo in it, you have the ability to bring either Rio or Hugo in as a fourth attacker if you're chasing a match. And if you're winning a match, you can do a like for like swap with Isak and Hugo. So I think you get sort of the best of both. Now the question is, what does Ekateke really look like coming off the bench into a match? We haven't seen a lot of it because he started all these matches. So I think that's the big question. I think from like a personnel standpoint, it makes sense to me to focus on and sort of getting Gakpo in, because what's behind Gakpo? It's like the 17-year-old, right?
Yeah.
Chiesa, which is like sort of your utility fourth attacker who can play across all three essentially. Or, in a pinch on the right, maybe Frimpong, right? Like I think, but for me, it's Gakpo, I think makes the most sense there.
The Chiesa thing is interesting because obviously, like the chat was talking about, like he doesn't make the Champions League because of the whole gay thing going down and all that. So the league and obviously the Southampton game is probably, that's probably a start for him. You can almost like pencil in, I would think, right? Yeah. Do you think it's just one of those cases that, especially once Isak comes in, like you might not even see him on the bench on certain days, or like, is he really there because we saw something and we were like, hey, he can bring this, we're going to need this guy, or, well, it's a body who can go on up top? Which one do you think is it?
I think it's very likely that you just don't see a whole lot of him, which is really sad. Cause the reason that I say that, I think that he adds something to the squad. Like, I think he's a tremendous player. I think he hasn't gotten a fair run. And I think that is very hard for a player like him to hit on all cylinders without like getting any sort of rhythm. Everything that we don't like about Chiesa are rhythm issues, the heavy touches, all that shit happens when you're not regularly playing. And I really feel for him because I feel like he's done and gone about everything the right way. And like, I love the way that he celebrates this team, even when he's not, the focal point. I just think he's a guy that I want in my side all day, every day. That being said, I don't think the manager feels the same way I do. And that's indicated by the way that he's been used, the way that he's been played, the way he didn't make the CL squad, like all the fact that he was clearly shopped in the window, like all those things make you think that like he's not somebody that Arne Slot thinks is a viable fourth option for the long term. So hope I'm wrong because I love the player. All the indicators that we've got don't line up with that.
Yeah, and I feel like, once Isak comes in, because like you said, like Rio seems more like a natural sub for, Gakpo when you're having a game. Like let's say we're doing a slot specialist 2-0. I can see Rio coming in on the left-hand side in the 70th and 75th minute and stuff like that. And we've seen, I kind of like thought of, what you just said in terms of what we think Slot thinks of him at the end of last season when he was not getting any runs out there, when it was all done and dusted, and we were kind of clearly the people on the pitch were slightly going through the motions of, still celebrating kind of an ordeal. And even then, he didn't get a lot of opportunities. You saw Nunes and stuff out there. So I think that's part of the deal. I think we're in agreement there. But let's say he comes out against Southampton. He had his moments earlier in the season, obviously, right? It's like a huge goal against like Bournemouth. Like, what does he have to do to unlock that? Or is it kind of like he's behind the locked door already?
I just think it's one of those things where the manager's already made up his mind. And I think that's I think that was the situation. Like we had a lot of these things. Like we had this conversation towards the end of last year when we were like, hey, is it time for Chiesa? Is it time for Ben Doak? Is it time for Harvey Elliott to get regular playing time and for the manager to make a decision? And like, we all kind of were talking about that. And I was like, I think the decision's already made. I think at that point, like, I think throughout the course of a season, when you get that many hours in training, when you get that many hours running behind the scenes, you know what pieces fit, what pieces don't. And like, I think we get a really clear indicator as to where these players are at, whether they're loaned, whether they're with the first team, and how they're used from a substitution standpoint. And I think like everything that we've seen just sort of clearly indicates that this is a kind of a player, a fringe player that like can be nice if somebody's injured or there's a need for him to step in. And that's ultimately what I think Chiesa has sort of been like pigeonholed into. I think he's been pigeonholed into this player that is a fan favorite that people really like, that the manager just doesn't really fancy unless he has a need, because like we're thin at a certain position and it requires an attacker, right?
Yeah.
And I think he really gets that. I think he gets that nod, and I think he gets that opportunity because his position versatility allows it. But I mean, I think we'd see even less of him if he was just a straight striker or like a traditional winger, right? So
yeah, true. At least he can kind of slot in different
right.
spots.
Yeah.
I mean, Serzi says I think Case is our new Shaqiri. Actually, I thought Elliott was more of our new Shaqiri in terms of like the times and the moments you felt. If anything, the ideal scenario, sadly, because I do say this, I do mean sadly, because I do think there's a great player in there that would be very, very valuable and expensive if we could unleash it. But I almost see the best case scenario for Chiesa and Minamino scenario, where he plays in the EFL Cup, has a lot of moments, scores goals, pretty much almost scores all the goals that gets you towards like the latter stages and stuff like that, and you kind of look back and say, hey, he was a big part of that, and then we sell him for a profit at the end, kind of a thing. Sadly, that's the kind of the trajectory I'm seeing for him.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would love. He's such a fun player to watch, and he's, I think people forget that like we're 2 Euros away where he was like considered one of the best attacking players in the entire world. He was the player of that tournament for Italy. Yeah, I mean, hope to be wrong. It just feels like the decision's already been made on him.
I feel, I agree. I mean, like I say, we'll see what happens in I mean, here's the thing. If we're going to see a lot of them, that would normally mean there's probably like injuries and stuff. So don't want that either, except maybe like during AFCON and stuff like that, where he might get more opportunities. Maybe if we are not able to use Frimpong as right wing, he has to play right back certain times and stuff like that. But yeah, I do want to unleash that player just for the value and just the performance alone. Just not sure.
And honestly, he just like, he deserves it. You know what I mean? Like you feel like he's always like, have you ever seen him come in and feel like he's either like dejected because he's not getting minutes or he's not putting a shift in? Like, I think we've seen that at times from all of our favorite players. And like, we just have never got, and nobody celebrates a team goal like Chiesa does. Like, he goes around and puts his hands on both sides of your cheeks and shakes you. Like, like I just love, it's like somebody's Italian grandmother hugging you every time we score. And what's not to love about that?
Yeah, man, he's definitely like an easy guy to root for, and I feel like the potential is there. And going back to what you're saying, I definitely agree with that. I just don't think. And look, we don't know what happens behind the scenes, right? I mean, Slut has talked a lot about fitness and all that kind of stuff, so we don't fully see what happens behind the scenes. But from based on what we're like seeing, it just does not feel like he has gotten opportunities. So people who were like still wanting Nunez to get one more season, 10 more seasons and stuff like that, we multiple opportunities. I feel like we never had that with Chiesa. It's just not there. But like I say, we don't know what happens behind the scenes, and we don't know if there's a reason for that. I highly doubt it's just because Slot doesn't like pasta or something like that. I am not understanding this. Let's talk about this elephant in the room, because I do not even see the freaking elephant. Is it just me that's not seeing like Mo as a problem?
I think it's a combination of people who are used to playing fantasy EPL and people who are used to have spent the last 10 years watching Mo bag goals every single week. And I think that the side's playing differently. I don't think they're playing through him. I also think that this is the match where he's the least impactful in terms of the way that he plays. We just talked about this. I think like in a match when you have 2 low blocks stacked on top of each other and 8 people essentially in or around the box, it negates everything that he does well, because the game is no longer predicated on pace. And that's the bottom line. I think you're never going to see like the best of Mo in a game like this. There's no balls over the top. He's not running into anything. It's just when you're static in front of a stacked box, you just don't get the best of Mo. You get occasionally maybe he'll break that back line and get a run in behind, but I just think it's very difficult for him to be at his best. But I'll tell you what, he came in and he made a PK in a huge pressure situation. That is not an easy one to make, especially off the back of a player who's missed him this year. So
Yeah, I mean, I was glad I did not watch that live. All I have to say that, and so is my doctor. But that was kind of like a risky business, and yeah, he smashes that thing. I just don't see like everybody like talking about like Mo, like his poor form and stuff like that. I'm just not seeing that. Going back to what you're saying, this was not going to be that kind of game. You look back, he has the assists right to Rio. He bags the goal. I know it's not like the most like well, goal, but he was. I mean, he's had the goals. I know this is a penalty, but he had the goal against Bournemouth, and really the Arsenal game. I think it was like a well played, very cagey game again, where you can't take advantage of like most pace and space. And honestly, like anytime he cuts in, you can see him like look up and all he sees is like 35 Burnley players inside the box. Like there is no they did try to do a couple of give and goes and stuff, but there's just like no freaking space. But when I say that, so if you're Sunderland now, and mind you, that's why I gave credit to Burnley, because I don't think a lot of teams can do this for 90 minutes. That hold that defensive discipline and not be like, hey, maybe we'll get something out of this game. Let's counter and let's go up and stuff like that. But do you think there'll be a lot of teams looking at this and saying, okay, well, this is what we got to do now? It takes this guy out of the game. It takes this guy out of the game. Or as Wirtz kind of gets going, Isak enters the squad, it will be a different ball game to do this against us. I mean, this has always been our issue, but
I think you could see some sides, but there's sides that are going to do that against top level competition, regardless of who they're playing. I don't like, I'll tell you, Sunderland's not built for it, which is probably why they're going to get relegated, because they're not, I think Sunderland's a side that's probably not going to get enough draws. Right. And I think that's the advantage to playing like this, is if you're good at it. This is Sean Dyche ball, right? Like if you're good at it, you get draws. And that's the other thing people don't talk about. Like Turf Moor is historically a very, very tough place to go play. Like it's not an easy away fixture. They did it and they did it well. I think the weird thing is to see Scott Parker do it because he typically, doesn't do that. So, I mean, hats off to them. Could sides do this against us? Sure. But did sides do it all the time to City when City was great? Sure. I mean, that's just something that you have to get over when you're a great side. Teams are going to sit back and make you beat them. And that's the thing, is like, that's what we did. We went out and we won that match. People are going to say it was lucky. We saw the stats earlier. It's not lucky when you have that much possession in the final third. Those things eventually happen, right? And so, our team's going to do that and maybe pip a point here and there, sure. But I think statistically, the odds of that happening are very, very narrow, and that's why you probably don't see it that much.
I get the fear that I kind of like mentioned this morning a little bit, but when teams look at us now, because of how we play compared to how we played during the club era, I can see teams being, we always said when we were watching games and we're going against City and we wanted City to lose points, we were like, how come nobody's having a go at them? Like they come to us and they have a go at us and stuff. I feel like when teams play Liverpool now, they know not to give that space behind. Especially now, like with Beers over there, Ekitike and Mo and stuff like that. They know not to give that space behind. They're a lot more defensive, similar to how they played against City in those days. Whereas they knew we were going to be really attacking and going on like the heavy metal football and stuff. So there was going to be space to exploit. And it felt like they gave us a bit more of a go in that sense because we had those gaps and spaces in the back. It just feels like teams now will know, we just got to sit, man. We just got to play it safe.
Yeah, I mean, I think the flip side of that is we're far less vulnerable to the counter, right? So it's harder to beat us that way, right? So, I mean, there is a bit of that. I think I distinctly remember when we were in the title chase a few years ago under Klopp, we were frustrated because we couldn't find a way to win when teams did this, because we were all counter. Like we were all running on people's space behind, and we struggled when people did this under Jurgen. Remember when we just would repeatedly cross it in from the wing under Trent? Like it was just Trent ball after Trent ball. And we were like, if it's not working, you have to adjust tactically. It's the same thing. The answer is the same. You get the ball in the box, you put it on frame. You need players to take people 1v1 and pull somebody off of that back line out of position so somebody can make the run behind the vacant position. That doesn't change. So, I mean, I think it's just part of football. And I think it's part of what happens when you have a side that's like, I think when you have a talent disparity and you have pace on the side, that's what people do.
Yeah, I mean, it makes look like if you go on paper, I mean, if we were taking off Liverpool, we would be like, yeah, our only chance is to defend for death kind of a
Yep.
deal. You just kind of expect a little bit more from a Premier League team. But yeah, when you look at in terms of like the talents gap or how the other talents can kill you, I realize I just don't see anybody playing this defensive.
Oh, I think
Yes.
this was an extremely. I think this was an extreme version of that, right? I mean, it did. The irony is that it did remind you of a Sean Dyche Burnley team, and he's
Yes.
not there anymore. In fact, I was reading a commentator who was like writing a review and was like, I always hate Burnley because they always play physical and this long ball over the top. And it's like, yeah, Scott Parker does it though. Like
No.
he
I thought it
typically
was gonna be like
doesn't.
that Scooby Doo thing where like he takes the mask off and it's like
Yeah.
it's Sean Dyche.
Yes, 100%.
Okay, like real quick. I know it's early, mind you. We will keep saying this. I think we did this almost till halfway of last season. We're like, it's early goings, but it's been 4 weeks in, right? Only perfect team in the league. When you look at what you've seen so far, it's still a slight overreaction, but not as much as like the first week or the second week, I think, because you've seen like different competitions, teams face like different competitions. Do you see anybody but Arsenal posing a threat? First of all, are you buying anything from the City win this weekend?
No, I'm not buying anything from the City win yet. I think the team that I think the one side that I probably keep one eye on outside of Arsenal, well, yeah, it's probably Chelsea. I mean, I just think that they do a lot of things that are difficult from an offensive standpoint. I don't think they've been as consistent as they want to be defensively. I think if you combined what Tottenham is doing defensively with Chelsea offensively, you've got a team that's challenging us. Neither one of those teams have really put it together yet. I still think Arsenal's the second best side. I think City still has the pedigree to do it. I think Tottenham and Chelsea are wild cards. Chelsea, just for whatever reason, like the pieces that are there and the weight, like I think it's the trajectory. I think it's the improvement over I think they're probably the most improved side over the shortest duration. And that's probably why I have one eye on them.
I think the only thing with Chelsea is it feels like every time they're about to figure it out,
Yep.
I think we almost solved this puzzle. It's almost like somebody walks over it, pieces go all over the place again.
That's fair.
They sell 8 guys, bring in you guys are like,
Yep.
hold on, we got to start over again and put it together. With
That's
Spurs,
fair.
I think it really depends on like how they can do defensively. I mean, they are due for that. We're finding out now that Bournemouth is a pretty darn good team, mind you. So that's our first win looks even better, and their loss maybe does not look as bad. But I just don't see Chelsea being consistently getting 3 points. And the only reason I feel like Arsenal will be there all the way through is that they have one thing over us is like those set pieces where, in game they're struggling. They have no business winning because they can't create anything. They're going to get like a stupid corner goal. I mean, you look at, that's how they beat United. That's how they opened the floodgates again. Leeds came from a set piece as well. So that's their like door opener. So they will be there, I think, till the end. But aside from like maybe Spurs, and that seems like iffy. They're gonna score goals, mind you. They've only considered 1 goal so far
Right.
in these like 4 games. But yeah, I just don't know if they're gonna be as consistent this early. They did make some good moves. I'll give them that. How about the other side? I mean, tomorrow, by the way, do tune in 1:00 Central when we do Rival Bros with my brother, because I can't wait to ask him more United questions. But when I say bottom of the table, that reminded me of United. But bottom of the table, when you look now, I think we all had, for the most part, 3 up, 3 down in terms of teams that are going to get relegated.
Yep.
The Wolves look like a top contender right now to take that.
I mean, I think we always thought Wolves had an outside shot at dropping, right? So, I mean, it's certainly there. I think it's absolutely insane what's happening at Villa with the talent on that squad that they haven't scored yet in this like campaign. That's
crazy.
Insane.
Yeah.
Dude, if you're a Villa fan, like we need to phone a friend for you. Like there's got to be a buddy system for Villa fans. It's insane. I'll tell you the team, like has there been a team that looks worse than West Ham top to bottom? That's what's insane to me with Graham Potter and what he's, was supposed to bring to that organization and stuff. That's a weird one to me.
So do you think any of those will like out of the newcomers,
Out of the newcomers, I think I don't see a way that Leeds scores enough goals. Like that's the thing that concerns me about Leeds. I think Leeds will drop. I think Burnley will probably be down there.
You put Sunderland a little bit ago earlier in terms of being able to defend and like kind of like drag out.
I did. You know, they're creating enough problems offensively right now that they're floating on that. And if they can do that and get points here and there, you know, I mean, they've got like but from 50% of their matches, they've won twice. Like you're going to hang around, right? If they continue to do that, they're going to hang around. I think it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with Forest with the manager turnover here and see if that like, you know, jumpstart anything. It's very possible that situation of Forest could get worse. But I still think all three newcomers have a legitimate shot to drop. I think if Sunderland continues to overperform offensively, they'll hang around. But
Sunderland have like 7 points or something, right?
Yeah, they're up in 7th right now. So, I mean, they're above Man City. So,
I mean, I'm looking at last season right now. So 25 points there was a huge gap. Obviously, Tottenham was at 38, but 25 points was the last one. I mean, Southampton had 12 points 4 weeks in. They're way past halfway to those like miserable 12 points. Right. And as miserable as that was, I do admit, you know, the Wolves thing is definitely not looking good. And I just don't see anything like, they will. It's not like they've had like a really, really tough schedule yet either, to be honest with you. I mean, they've lost to the Bournemouth one, right? Oh, no, that's actually not. Hold on. Let me pull up their schedule right here. But Newcastle, mind you, that was like a really wounded Newcastle, losing at home to Everton, Bournemouth, and then Wolves at home, City at home. That was like the 4-0, like the opener that looked like City was going to beat everybody 5-0 and finish the season and stuff like that. But Mr. Barris says check in with your brother regularly. I do, just to make fun of him, though, more than anything else. But he'll be on tomorrow. I already told him to go watch Amram's post-match press conference and Fernandez and stuff like that, because it will be interesting to get his takes over there. But let's finish out with some predictions for Wednesday over here. What do you expect to see? And how much do you care? Is it just me? Like, I don't have... Like, it's not like I want us to lose or whatever, but if it was like a draw or something like that, I don't think I'd be as devastated as I would be if the Burnley game was a draw, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I can see that. I think it's going to be a relatively low scoring affair. I just think that these two teams tend to get in the gutter and punch it out when we play each other. Typically, I could see like a 1-1 or a 1-0. I'll go 1-1.
1-1. I'm the optimist, or it's kind of like a jinx thing, so I'll go with the 2-1 win.
Oh, I thought you were going to go 2-2.
No, that my heart goes for the 2-1 win. But yeah, the brain does say more like a draw and like a cagey affair, because I almost feel like, look, last year I think we taught the entire Champions League world a lesson. Like the whole Liverpool case will go in infamy as you can kick everybody's ass, doesn't mean a whole lot. So I think if you look at it from Atletico Madrid's like point of view, they'd be more than okay with a draw too, and like walk out of there and say, yeah, let's start with a point over here. This is like their toughest fixture going away to Anfield. So I can see it being very cagey, and as long as there's no injuries or anything like that. Dara's going with the slot special 2-0. Bob is going with the 1-0. Like I say, I'm even okay with a draw. I hate to say it, but obviously a win would go a long way. And then hopefully by then we'll find out where the hell Galley's at, and we'll see if he'll be able to like join us. So thanks a lot, Bickler. Thanks a lot, those hopping on the chat this morning. Do tune in tomorrow. Obviously tomorrow morning we have the morning coffee show. Then during the day we have Rival Bros, and do tune in tomorrow and do a wellness check on Shea with Villa if he's going to join us to see how they're doing over there. And obviously, we'll find out from United. I think Io is going to be there as well. Have an awesome week, everybody. Thanks as always. Hit the like, do the subscribing, and we'll see you guys next week. Take care.